John Hume was without doubt an exceptional person. He had aspirations for the people of Ireland to ensure that we could all fulfil our own potential. He wanted us all to have access to the very simple economic building blocks, such as education, housing, and access to our own financial stability through his credit union movement work. And on reflection of all that work, there was a common theme. John had an ability to not just recognise a problem, but he would forensically break it down, understand the negative impact it was having on the people, and he would build the solutions around that. So while he aspired to achieving all these things for us, he was also aware that none of this would be fluid or could ever reach its full potential if we didn't have the peace process. And that probably was the single biggest piece of work he did undertake. In fact, it probably at the outset to many, it seemed an impossibility. But not only did John understand it, he was dogged and determined to make sure it happened, and it became a reality.
Let's spill our sweat and not our blood to make things change. Flying flags will never feed a hungry child. They will only raise the borders in our mind. And I was hearing...
John Hume was a hero to me. He was a friend of my family, a friend of my grandfather, and he was a friend of Ireland. He left a legacy that every Irish person can be proud of. And we are grateful for the Ireland we live in today because of the work, the determination, the shining integrity of John Hume. Imagine Goroshe.
He knew that would involve having some very difficult conversations and taking steps that would not easily go down well with his community or the people who surrounded and supported him. But he also knew for us to ever reach the end game where we would have peace and prosperity, those conversations would have to happen and somebody would have to take those steps. And John Hume was never about an ego or about himself. So he was very willing to walk out there and do what needed to be done. And thankfully it did work. And many of us are the product of that work. And we have had the privilege of living in an Ireland that is closer to the aspirations of John Hume than the times of violence. Regardless of your politics, I think everybody should recognise that Ireland has been shaped by John Hume, and generations to come have a template and a format to improve on his work. And I really hope that they'll take it. And I really think it is on all of us. People often say there will never be another like him, and perhaps there won't. But there's probably a little bit of responsibility on all of us, whether you're in politics or not, to be a little bit more like John Hume.
Highwaymen and holy men, of heroes of right and wrong who never lost a fight. But I sing my song for a man who never asked for one. Quiet man who saved my life. And he kept saying, there's another way. Let's spill our sweat and not our blood to make things change.
Growing up in Castlewellan, we all knew the name of John Hume. We all knew about the political giant he was as he stood proudly alongside Breed Rogers, the late great Seamus Mallon, Eddie McGrady and our own local giant Eamon O'Neill. I was honoured to be part of a group that spent a week with John in Belgium some 20 years ago and got to experience John Hume, not the politician, but the kind, warm-hearted and generous man that so many knew and loved. John Hume's place in history is cemented, and yet even in death he has the power to continue to transform hearts and minds. As a politician within the SDLP, I'm proud to do my part in continuing John's work, and I know that as my children, Tom and Polly, grow up in this peaceful Ireland which John helped deliver, they will know and learn from his lived principles of respect, non-violence, peace, kindness, warm-heartedness and generosity of spirit. Rest in peace, John.
And I've been lost for all these years. And there were tears that filled the rivers and the sea. There were tears that cried for justice and for peace. There were tears that cried that no one need give in. They were saying there's a way we all can win.
I really think it is on all of us. People often say there will never be another like him, and perhaps there won't. But there's probably a little bit of responsibility on all of us, whether you're in politics or not, to be a little bit more like John Hume.
It can seem now like it's just yesterday, and it brings me down the long and lonely days. You may not remember me,